Cornerstone Gundog Academy. Online resources to help you train your retriever.
Welcome to another episode of the Built From Here podcast. This episode is an honor to have you here. First of all, I know we've had Marty on before, but it's an honor to have you in studio. It's always a pleasure just to hang out with Marty because you've been with us from the very beginning, you've always been a big supporter of it. But you've also always been a true CGA member at your heart. You know, you're out about getting out there, training those dogs, doing a good job with them, and you're just passionate about it. So it's an honor to have you here, and I'm excited for today and to get to share with the world just whatever we stumble upon today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. I always enjoy coming over and hanging out with you guys and training, and I always learn something when I come over, and it's always a fun time for me. So I always look forward to it. So
good. Well, let's kind of dive into the season a little bit. So we're filming this. I think we're around mid-February here, and so we just got on the tail end of season. How did your season go with your dogs?
It went really good. We had locally, where I hunt, we had a really nice season this year. There's me and three other guys that we hunt together pretty much, every Saturday, and we usually kill between 15 and 24, ducks, every Saturday,
That's fantastic.
And I think probably the dogs all together this season, with the tower shoot and all, they probably picked up over 250 birds. So
that's fantastic.
It was a good season, and we killed several limits. We made one trip to Arkansas. That trip didn't go quite as well as I wanted it to. It was in December, and they were at an all-time low on birds. I think we killed 15 birds in 3 days. So we come back home and we killed a limit the next Saturday. So it was always a good time. Hanging, going with the guys I hunt with, and hanging out and just watching some good dog work and hanging out in the blind. So
sounds like y'all got a really good setup. A lot of people don't have that. They're killing 2, 3, 4, or 5 birds. Y'all got a good setup there.
Yeah. Well, I guess what makes it so good is, we'll usually hunt it one day a week, and then it's got 6 days to rest. So it's not getting over hunted. So we all of us work together. So and then they like me to come because I'm the dog guy, and I've got to worry about picking up any ducks when we're done hunting, So
that's good.
Yeah, so all we got to do is put out the decoys and pick up the decoys. So
the dog guy makes the hunt, in my opinion. What I'm saying?
But you get a lot of good invites if you got good dogs, So
that's right.
You get to go hunt a lot of good places. So I always enjoy it. But I have a good time with Jess and Regan and Mark and the guys I hunt with all the time. They're good guys. Yep.
That's good. Well, we just got through talking about the tower shoot earlier. Let's talk about that. There was a lot of birds at this tower shoot.
Yes, they turn loose between somewhere between 850 and 900 birds in a little over 2 hours, somewhere between 2.5 and 3 hours. And Koda and Bear, they did a great job. I think there was a little short this time on dogs. I think we only had maybe a dozen dogs to cover the whole thing, but between the 12 dogs that were there, they picked up over 650 birds.
Wow.
And Koda and Bear, they picked up 87 together. And it was fast and furious, a lot of solid gunfire, nothing but guns going off, pheasants falling everywhere, not only the ones that fell where we could that we picked up, they can see in every direction, birds falling. So it's good steady work for your dog, and a lot of marks. And they're not nothing difficult. It's fairly low cover, and they can see them fall and land out there, and just shag birds for about 3 hours. Main thing is keeping the dogs cool down because they're just constantly going. Maybe. So. But it was a really good time, and my friend Hunter Twyford, that heads up the dog crew over there, he does a great job getting everybody together, and putting it all together.
Oh,
so
yeah. He's a good guy.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
been on the
great guy.
podcast as well. He's got some
I
good stories.
I love Hunter, man. He's one of my favorite guys, man.
He's a good
he's so
guy.
much fun to be around. Yeah,
He really is.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, how did so let's talk about the dynamics. So you got 2 dogs,
Right.
and you'll oftentimes work 2 dogs.
Oh yeah.
What's the dynamic between the 2 dogs you've got? There's their personalities are definitely different.
They're different. They're definitely different. They're both great dogs in their own on their own. But Koda's the one. He's a little older, so I was training him. He was about to the right age. He was under a year old. Maybe 8 months old or so. I think whenever I joined CGA, and so I mean, he was he had a lot of a lot of energy, and he wanted to pick up. He's the type dog. He thinks he got to pick up everything he sees fall. And he was my main challenge was just getting him steady. And it took me he was probably a little over 2 years old, 2.5 years old before I really felt like super comfortable.
Wow.
With as far as not having to stay on him a little bit about not breaking and stuff. But a lot of days I would just go take him out, take my launcher out, sit on a bucket with a pile of bumpers, and I would just shoot 7 or 8 of them out there. And, if I kind of just barely put them on there where they wouldn't go too far, then I wouldn't let him pick anything up. I'd just go out there and pick them all up myself. I had to do a lot of steady work with him, but all in all. And then Bear, he's one of the easiest dogs I ever trained. I mean,
wow.
he was really one. He was the kind of dog, he likes working with you, real biddable.
Yeah.
You could show him something once or twice and, he had it, and he was just a naturally steady dog. He never, if he even thinks he broke, I mean, you saw it today. I mean, if he thinks he didn't get the command to go, he might take off, but he'll turn right around on his own and come back and like, I'm not sure, so he's, he likes working with you and he wants to please you. So
that's a good dog.
He was super easy to train. And, I run him through I hunted him in the hunt test, and shortly after he was 2 years old, he had his HRCH title. So
that's a good dog.
And I put Koda in a few. I had him in 2 season tests, and he passed both days. But of course, that was later on. When he was, he's 6 now, so it was last year. So he was 5, so he got two season passes. So I plan on just whenever I have a close test, take him and go ahead and try to get his his title as well. So
he's pretty sharp too.
Oh yeah.
Both of them are sharp dogs, Bear and Koda both. But I mean, Bear definitely. They both like to work now. They've got that drive to go.
they live to work. I mean, that's one thing I love about both of them. They know when it's time to go to work, and they love what they do, and that's invaluable with a dog because like I was telling you earlier when we was talking, I'm pretty much I work full time and I get to hunt on Saturdays and I don't hunt on Sundays. I go to church on Sundays, but I hunt every Saturday. And then whenever we have a holiday or sometimes I'll take a day or 2 off, but usually about 15 or 16 days a year through the season, I get to duck hunt. And, but they, then you subtract that from 365. Then you got another 340 something days of the year where you got something to do with your dogs, and that's where CGA comes in. I mean, you can spend all that time working with your dogs, and I try to get my dogs out and do something with them every day. Whether it's in the morning before I go to work or when I get home, especially once the time changes, I'll have a little more time in the evenings. And me and a guy I train with, Sawyer, we'll be getting out and getting after it here shortly. So
that's good. I am ready for spring and time change. Just I know a lot of people are because we get more time to train our dogs.
Yeah.
One thing I think that you were talking about there that's worth hitting on. And, you said it like it wasn't. I mean, it took you a little bit of time, but you handled it well. You were able to get them steady. But I think a lot of people are in a place with their dogs where they're feeling like they may never get their dog steady,
Right.
like just because it can be a challenge and it can make you feel overwhelmed. What was some of the things you did with Koda other than denials and
Yeah.
your mindset? How did you go about, just staying consistent enough to make that happen?
Well, I would spend definitely, that was one of my main focuses with him,
Okay.
and all the, the different drills, the obedience drills to where you stand out in front of the dog, have him sitting, and toss the bumpers around,
Yeah.
and a lot of my training sessions, I'll take the dogs out. I'll start it out that way. I'll sit them, and I'll have a pile of bumpers in my hand, and I'll just throw them all around. I can bounce bumpers off my dogs now, and they won't go for it. I mean, that they're steady now.
That's good.
But I had to spend a lot of extra time with him, but I just kind of stayed focused on it, and anything I could think of to help him out, I would, and I didn't, I tried as best I could not to tolerate zero, breaking with him, so as best I could, and,
So just putting that on your focus was, biggest thing. And
yeah, and like I said, one of the main things that I think really, helped him was just being able to, sit there and watch stuff fall and him not being able to go get it,
Yeah.
Because he had the drive. He's got enough drive for two dogs. He loves to work and retrieve, and that wasn't an issue. But just kind of getting him to slow down a little bit. And he's fixing to be 7 in March.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, we're coming right up on it then.
Yeah,
Wow.
so he's fixing to be 7, and of course Bear, he'll be 6 in June. So they're finished. So I'm just, what I do every day is just try to keep them polished and sharp, and get them ready for next season. Just kind of keep them sharp so they'll be ready when it's time to hunt. So
that's good. One of the things we talked about earlier when we were out there training was we were kind of talking about the hunt test that you had done, and that one of the things that you had noticed at the hunt test that gets most people is just a lack of control over the dogs. That's what costs more people.
Yeah, that'll get you out. That'll get you out quick. Whatever you start tweeting that whistle, if they don't stop and sit, or whenever you give them they say, even if they stop and sit and you give them a cast, if they don't turn back toward the line of that blind, that's a cast refusal. So I mean, that's that'll. You only get 3 of those, and and if you get 3 of them, you're out. So a lot of times when you're out training and you tweet a whistle a couple times, and you don't really think that much about it, but then in a hunt test you do that, and the dog don't look at you twice. Well, that's 2 cast refusals, So they can get you in trouble in a hurry. So that's that. If anybody that's gonna hunt test, you gotta have good control of your dog, and I think that's one of the things that the hunt test guide that y'all got going is going to help a lot of people out with.
I think so. I'm pretty excited about it, especially with what Clark and them are sharing too. But also obedience too, just going back to the roots, which is one thing I've noticed with your dogs always. When you're getting them out, there's focus. You're making sure to be deliberate and intentional about every move you make with them, every bit of communication, even when it's opening that door on the kennel, everything you're doing is intentional. Yeah. And that plays a factor. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it. Like you were talking about casting. So often people will get so focused in on the problem that they're not seeing the peripheral, that maybe the problem isn't the casting. Maybe it's their obedience in general. How much are you having to say sit? How much are you having to work with your dog? Are you having to wrestle with your dog? Or are they in tune with you? Because it all starts at the line. It all starts at your side. And you're as you go out further, the less and less control you have. If you don't have enough control here, out at a distance. You
Yeah.
certainly aren't going to have control there.
If you don't got control, right here within 25 or 30 yards of you, you can forget it when they get out there 150 or 200 for sure. But that's and then something else that'll get a lot of people in trouble too. To me, on both of my dogs, I generally hardly ever get a refusal or on a whistle on a cold blind.
Yeah.
They seem to want to, when I run a cold blind, they didn't see anything fall. They're pretty much dependent on me to get them there. But on a mark, if they miss a mark, run past it, and they think they know where it's at.
Yeah.
And then, my dogs will sometimes, if they're in that kind of hunt mode, they think they're running out there and say, okay, so they run past it. And I tweak the whistle to try to get them back to me. I'll get some refusals sometimes there, and I do work on that with them, a lot, So I collar condition both my dogs, and just mainly for that reason.
That reason right there.
Yeah, because and especially handling at long distances.
They're smart. They know when they're out of range.
Yeah, Bear. He's usually really good, but if you send him on a mark and he runs past it and he gets out there, he'll just a lot of times if I tweak the whistle the first time, if he don't stop, then if I just give him a good solid no, then he'll stop and look at me, and I have to kind of reel him back in a little bit, and call him to me, but if you're gonna run hunt tests, you gotta work on that control,
Yeah.
So they got to be steady, and they need to be able to mark well, and they definitely got to be able to work with you running blinds. When you start tweeting that whistle, it's them judges, they want the hunting part's over. They want you to have control of the dog right to the blind, so or the mark that you had to handle them on.
Right.
They want you to handle them right to it. You can't let them run around and hunt anymore. You gotta handle them. So
yeah, that can be challenging.
Yeah,
that especially in that scenario.
And like I said, a lot of the information that Clark's putting out there, is even like the beginning stuff he put out there, about not training with emotion. That's something good everybody can learn, because I see so many guys, even pro trainers, man. I mean, they get upset, a lot of times, and
I mean, we all do.
Yeah, it's easy to do, and but that one little piece of advice there has helped me more than anything. And I can say since I watched that, I have not gotten upset with my dogs at all.
That's amazing.
But because it, like you said, I mean, it don't accomplish anything.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself getting a little, upset, sometimes it's better just to put the dog up, sit in your truck for a few minutes, and think about it, and get your dog back out, and pick back up. And,
I think a lot of people get trapped in that, and it's really a matter of like, a lot of people find themselves training. They're here, their dog's here, and they're butting into each other.
Yeah.
But you really need to be kind of going in the same direction.
Yeah.
And it's our job as the handler to make sure that we're going in the same direction with the dog. Like you're saying, maybe you need to put them up and think about it. But, and I think there's this idealistic view when it just for all trainers, and it's not bad, but it's not good.
Yeah.
that we're all one day I'm gonna arrive as a trainer, and I'll have it figured out. That is not gonna happen. And if you are viewing it that way, your motives are wrong. Your perspective is wrong, because you're trying to train to some end destination, and it's not about that. It's about the journey with the dog every single day. Every time you go out, you're having a choice that day to either make a decision to be in tune with your dog and make the good decisions, or you have a choice to get frustrated.
Right.
And so that's a good point that you brought up there, just that emotions. I think a lot of people, especially early on in the journey, there's a lot of frustration because they're not trusting the process or trusting themselves either. They're like wondering if they're ever going to get there. But that's where that faith comes in the process too. Like, hey, like you said, I mean, that's one thing I want to highlight about your story that you're sharing too, is, around 8 months old, you had a big breaking problem with Koda, but you kind of, about by 2 years old, you had it worked out. Well, that's a long time, but you got it worked out.
Oh yeah.
And that's what matters. And you didn't give up. And in that, whatever that is, little over, or about a year period or however long that was between 8 months and 2 years old, you didn't give up. So yeah, over a year. So you just kept just day by day, little by little, you were going to get there. And that's the attitude I think we all need to have. And that's what I think you exhibit so well for the members and kind of encourage people to do. And so that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't try to rush anything so much with, even though I was getting out there training a lot every day, as far as, hunting the dogs, none of my dogs never get to hunt the first season they're alive. Yeah. I mean, I'm not taking
That's a good move.
I'm not taking it's got to be at least, my goal is by their second season that I want to be able to take them and hunt them some.
Yeah.
And then, by that third season, I want them solid. You know, that's my goal,
There's not much, if any, good that comes out of hunting a dog their first season. It's not worth nothing. It. I have seen countless problems. Because people come to us like, we did this, we did that. I've seen countless issues where people have hunted their dogs early. It's causing problems because there's people out there on social media saying, hey, yeah, that's the best thing. You take them and let them learn on the job. No.
They don't learn like that, and they don't learn from other dogs. They don't learn from watching other dogs. No. I'm sorry, that just don't happen.
It doesn't.
No, a lot of people think, well, they can watch this dog do this. That's not the way it happens. So
at least on the level that we're trying to train to. Maybe a dog can see a dog run out there and go get something and figure out, well, I can run in that direction too. Yeah. But when it comes to seeing steady, being straight lines, taking casts, all that comes through diligence and repetition.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I focus on with my dogs now is even if I only got, a few minutes, to run out and do something with them, I might just plant a couple cold blinds, and run each dog, take a couple minutes with each dog and, put them back in the truck or back in the side by side and come back to the house, But I always try to spend a little time doing something, and then on the weekends we'll try to do, a little something more, when me and Sawyer get together, we'll maybe put out the wingers or put the versa out and run some marks and run some blinds through the area of the fall or, under the arc or, try to set up some different stuff just to keep them sharp, so.
That's the thing that we can all struggle with is less is more. It doesn't take a whole lot to make. And honestly, as I'm sitting here listening to it, you say that it actually might be better for people. I know it may sound counterintuitive, but get 2 dogs, get 2 puppies, because you can get your training fix because you're going to train more. You can overtrain a dog. Oh yeah. But if you got 2, you'll get your training fix in because you're getting double the amount of training time, but each dog's getting the right amount of training time.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a challenge, and it was a challenge having 2 of them. But they were, like I said, when I got Bear and started him, he caught up to Koda's level, pretty quick, and and I was able to, train them both at the same time for as far as that goes, and but. I kind of miss having a puppy, to get out there and work with, work with and going through all the obedience stuff.
It's fun. The puppy phase is so fun. They're so biddable. They're so eager. That's like one of the most exciting parts.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my next one because I'm gonna start him out with like I said, 52 plus wasn't out whenever I was starting both of mine. I just had the basic Gundog stuff, and. But I'm on my next puppy. I'm gonna start him out with 52 plus. I'm gonna take him all the way through the the whole program. And
he's gonna do good.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be good. I'd watched a lot of even though I wasn't training a puppy, I had watched a lot of it, and I just recently went back and started just going back through watching the new 2.0 52 plus, because it was kind of formatted just a little bit different, so I kind of started working my way. Just watch. A lot of times when I'm sitting there on the couch, or TV's on, I'll pop my phone up, watch some 52 plus episodes, just. I enjoy watching it, and always learning, But,
I go back and I'll even watch, I mean, it's funny to say that, but I'll watch my own videos just because, we put a lot of work every week. It's not just, we weren't just going out there and just, all right, let me figure out what I'm going to teach today. We studied and prepared. It's one thing to like know your process as a trainer. It's another thing to communicate and teach your process. So we would study, we would prepare, and make sure that we cover different angles from like just different concepts in that week. What else can we teach in this week? If we're working on introducing hand signals for the first time, what concepts can we be teaching there? So the amount of work that goes into it, if you're not sharp or if you're not preparing for that week's teaching, it's worth for me going back and watching it just because I know how much work went into it. It's like, okay, well, if I go back and watch it, I'm going to pick up some stuff that I may have forgotten since we made it a point to teach that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just staying focused and moving in the right direction. That's and kind of learning as you go. Because you can always learn from going back and watching stuff. And I'll do that sometimes too. I'll film my dogs running stuff. And I'll go back and watch it and see how they did. Sometimes somebody's with me. They'll Sawyer, he'll film some stuff for me, and I'll do the same for him, and we'll go back and check it out. But
it's amazing what you can learn, the little details that you can pick up.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty amazing what you can learn from what you're doing.
Yeah, and like I said, back to the hunt test guide. Some of the different segments I've been watching with Clark. And another thing that kind of really made me stop and think. Whenever he gets a dog out, he talked about, he'll have a bunch of dogs out there at all different levels.
Absolutely.
And whatever he's working on at the time, he knows, okay, this dog, when he's running this is the 3 or 4 ways that he can mess up.
Yep.
And he already knows, he's already got in his mind what he's going to do, to correct that dog or to help the dog, simplify it, or whatever he's going to do with that dog. Before he ever turns it loose, and that's one thing I've been trying to do too. Is whatever I'm running with my dogs. Okay, if they mess up, what am I going to do?
Yeah, so thinking through the possibilities before it happens, because if it happens,
and you're like, oh my, what I do now? I let one of the hunt tests that Bear didn't pass. It was on one of the marks and. He picked up the first 2 clean, and then when he turned to run the third one, it was kind of like on a little bit of a downhill, and he's pretty fast when he takes off, and he run just to the downwind side of it and just passed it, and he just kept on going and going and going, and I was like, I had no idea. I had no idea what to do. And by the time I thought to pick up my whistle and blow it, he was already 100 yards past hooking along the edge of the field. It happens really, really fast.
Yeah, and, especially a dog that's fast like that.
Yeah, I didn't, because it looked like he was going right towards it, but he just run right past it. And then by the time I picked my whistle up and tweeted it, and I recalled him back to me, he was right out in the middle of one of the old falls, and I gave him I cast him over, and when I cast him, he started smelling birds that had been falling out there, and I got several cast refusals right there, and but I cast him over and he picked the bird up, but like I said, lack of control there,
Yep, gotcha.
Standing out there in the middle of where, there's been 25 or 30 birds, fall, it's,
he thought he was in the right spot.
He thought he was in the right spot, but just, if I'd have been a little bit quicker, I might could have, handled things a little bit different, but yeah, thinking things through before you ever turn the dog loose, that was one tip that from the hunt test guide that this really, helped me too. So
I agree with that. And Clark does a great job at communicating and just thinking through the possibilities. Like we were out there today and I was thinking through the possibilities, like with Violet, and this first time I've ever ran that drill with her. And And I thought she was going to do what she was going to do, and completely shocked me. That was one possibility I didn't think of. She ended up going a different direction. I was like, that just blew my mind. I was like, okay, well. And sometimes when that happens, that's part of training. Sometimes you just let it unfold. Sometimes I'll let things just unfold just to see. I want to know why my dog is doing it. So, I mean, it's not always the best thing. You don't want to do that every time. But, like, sometimes I'll let my dog I'll let them just screw it up completely and do the opposite so that I can try to get into their head. Okay, why are they making their decisions at that point in time? Why? Because if you cut them off every time before they make a decision, you don't get to see their full process. So for me, I'll sometimes just want to see the full process. Hey, let them do it, because it's not the end of the world. It's not like I can't rerun the drill and then get them narrowed in. But if you cut them off too early, you don't have that opportunity to study your dog and learn. So it is important to study the dog and kind of learn their tendencies for sure.
Oh yeah. And like I said, that 3-legged drill that we run today, I really like that drill. When I first heard about that drill, I was actually watching one of the hunt test guide. I think it was a Q&A session that Jake was facilitating. I guess that's the right word I'm looking for, with Clark. And Clark had mentioned, it talked about running a 3-legged drill, and I wasn't really 100% sure what it was. So I went back, and after it ended, and I called Jake up on the phone, and he talked to me a little bit and kind of explained it to me. And now since then I had done it probably 4 or 5 times. You know, and then when they just dropped this last segment on the hunt test guide, the first module, that was one of the first things that Clark kicked it off with, was that 3-legged drill. And that's one of my favorite drills to run, for as casting, and it really helps your dog, being able to cast them out of suction. When they're looking at one thing, you got to be able to cast them off in another direction. It really definitely helps on your control for sure. So
I think that Clark did a good job on that one specifically. I mean, all of them specifically, but like their approach to running the drill, it's one thing to know the drill, but it's another to have how you approach it and all the different angles you're looking at it. And I think they bring a lot of value to the table, and how to approach the drill with the dog and how to think through it, because there's right ways to do it. There's any way you run the drill is probably fine, but there's a right way to do it. And I feel like they got that pretty dialed in.
And then and then even like he was talking about, after the season's out, he'll take all, even his finished dogs, his master hunters and grand champions, he'll take them back out and run them through it, and keep them sharp, so
and all those concepts really work whether you're hunting or testing. Casting out a suction specifically, I mean, we've seen this on hunts that we went on when we went up there to Kansas. I mean, there were so many birds falling. But there's birds that are getting away, and we can talk about some cripples here, because I know Koda is all about those cripples. But having the ability, if you got a dead duck here, casting your dog out of that suction to go get the cripple that will get away if you can't get the dog quickly. And if you're wrestling with a dog over which bird to pick, you're going to lose some birds. So what did you have any stories maybe from this hunting season where you ran into some situations to where you had to cast them out of suction, or is it more of just you had a cripple and then you had to get your dog out to the cripple pretty quick?
Yeah, like I said, I try to hold down on cripples as much as possible. I learned that, and all the guys I hunt with, me being the dog guy, they know I hate cripples, especially when you're hunting in timber, and where we hunt at, the timber is swimming water.
Oh wow!
And whenever I send the dogs, they got lunging water for about 30 yards out on the little flat where we got all the decoys and where most of the hole where most of the birds are coming. But when they drop off into there's probably another 50 or 60 yards of nothing but standing trees and stuff, and it's fairly thick, and if you get a duck that's got his legs under and he gets back there in that timber, and it can go. By the time you get a dog back in there, the duck's already 100 yards that way, steadily going in this swimming water, and the dog can't see it, and you don't know where it's at either. It's almost impossible to catch, get them. So all the guys I hunt with know once we finish a volley, they're throwing shells in, and they're looking at the birds, and if there's any of them swimming off. That's another important thing about having a steady dog. If you got a dog that breaks, you can't finish cripples.
That's right.
So your dog's got to be steady. And a lot of mornings, we'll have a dozen ducks laying out there in the spread, dead, before, I ever get out and start working the dog, picking them all up, so.
Well, that's something we can talk about too right there. So the word steady, it means different things. I think there's different levels of steadiness.
Right.
There's one level of steadiness, which is just not breaking, not actually going out on the retrieve. But it's another level of steady to do what you're talking about there. Mentally, the dog being steady as well. So, if you got 4 to 6 guys blasting and then shooting cripples, some dogs will sit steady, but it will get them so jacked up in their mind that when they're released, they're just in another universe.
Yeah.
So it's not just enough to train your dog to just sit there. That's where what you have done, I think, with your dogs, which shows well, is you've trained them to process still. It's one thing to be steady, but it's another thing to still have the capabilities of processing and not getting too excited.
Yeah. They've come a long way, so, but they'll both, they'll sit there in their Invisilab and watch ducks fall all morning until I get out and start sending them. So that's
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Not a lot of duck hunters have the ability to say that about their dogs.
And then you got a cripple out there. Everybody's blasted away. The shots hit the water. The dog's sitting there seeing all that. It's tough. That's why you got to put in the work. And work on all that kind of stuff before you ever take them to the duck blind. You take a young dog out there and he's not steady, and you got cripples out there, and and one of your buddies, are shooting over the top of the dog, when he's out there, and it ain't good. So
you really have to prepare for it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I think the excitement gets them like, oh yeah, I've got a dog. We're going to get out here and hunt. And, but there's a lot more preparation, even for a dog, even if you don't do hand signals. The preparation, the weight of the work is loaded on the front end of training. It's the obedience. That's why in 52 plus, we spend the first 16, 17 weeks worth of training on obedience. Ideally, it starts with an 8-week-old puppy, but you got to get that obedience in there. Otherwise, you're losing control.
Yeah, absolutely. That obedience foundation, every bit of that transfers out for the rest of the dog's life. He'll use that basic obedience every time you take him out to hunt or train or whatever. Telling them to go place. They got to go hop up on the Invisilab or on the timber stand or or in the dog spot on the end of the pit blind or wherever they got a place.
Yeah.
And they got to stay there, so they need to
That's
stay.
Right. They need to stay there.
They need to sit. They need to stay. Like I said, every one of those commands, all transfers out in the field. And whenever you start working on hand signals, certainly that whistle stop is an extension of the sit. It's all. Every bit of it is you'll use for the rest of the dog's life, and nailing it down.
It makes a difference too.
Yeah.
It will, well-obedient dog will change your experience. A dog that's lacking obedience will be a thorn in your side when you're trying to work on the big stuff. I think Clark or somebody was saying, that advanced trainers, people that have a lot of experience, work on the basics, and then a lot of times newer trainers, the tendency is to want to work on advanced stuff. Well, to get to the advanced stuff, it all starts just with the foundation stuff and keeping things simple. I mean, Clark and them, they're running single marks most of the time,
right?
And they keep things to where the communication is. It's about training, not running the drill. It's not about accomplishing the drill. It's about actually training that dog when you're out there.
Yeah, and what he talked about on the marks, and that made a lot of sense to me. Every mark that they set up has a purpose.
That's right.
Yeah, they don't just go out and run marks, randomly for no reason. But every mark, they're actually working on something, with that dog, and so, having that kind of, I guess outlook on it. How you're,
Yes.
When you get out there, this is what I'm, whether it's running a mark or through another mark through an area of an old fall, or a mark going into cover, or through cover, or
Right.
whatever, or a check down bird or whatever you're working on that day, can having that kind of ability to think through those kind of things,
Yeah.
and before you ever start training, is get the dogs out of the truck is a good thing. So
That's right.
yeah.
I guess that's something good to talk about real quick, because purpose in training is that's kind of what honestly we're hitting on all on this podcast is purpose. Everything you do needs to have a purpose. Every
Right.
decision you make should have a purpose and a reason, so that you're strategic and you're intentional and you're getting the most out of your time. What how do you feel like you've transformed? Because obviously you've been with CGA from the very beginning. How do you feel like you've transformed from training a dog before to where you're at now, years into it?
First off, this is not the first labs that I've owned. I'd had a couple of other ones before,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't do a ton of duck hunting, but I mainly back then I was doing a lot of deer hunting and turkey hunting, and stuff, and I had some guys I hunted with, when we'd start seeing, later on in January, we'd start seeing some mallards or stuff show up down in some of the sloughs where we was deer hunting. We would, my dogs would retrieve, but by no means were they steady or anything.
Right.
And a lot of times I'd just take them down there with a timber lead, and I'd hook them onto a tree, where they couldn't break, and we'd kill 7 or 8 ducks, and then I'd let him, I'd unhook them and let him go get them, but I had no idea how to train a dog,
Wow.
And so the last one, I had a chocolate lab named Trapper, and he would have been a great dog if I'd have had CGA and knew what I was doing back then, because he had a lot of drive and he liked to retrieve, and but I didn't. His owner didn't have a clue, so he lived to be 14, and
Wow.
he was a good pet, and a little bit of time clicked along, so I'm gonna get me another one. This time I'm gonna train it, so that's what I did. And then a little later on, after I got Koda, I'd been following Southern Oak Kennels, and y'all was just getting it, getting CGA up started, and y'all was trying to get some founding members to get in, and I got to reading about it, and I was like, man, I said, there's no way this can't be good, and I will say this a 1,000 times: that is the best money I ever spent, is getting in CGA as a founding member.
That's awesome.
I mean, that was, when you start training a dog and being able to know exactly what you need to do every time you leave the house, what you need to work on. When you start out at the beginning with a puppy, you start out working on basic obedience, and then you'll start working on some beginner gun dog skills, and you start tailoring your training sessions to where you're working on all this stuff every time you go out, and you start seeing the progress the dog makes. And I don't know, I guess I kind of took a little bit different approach about the different modules. What I would take the little training, I guess you'd call training builders, y'all.
Yep.
And what I did is I would take one, and I would put all the different skills for that module on that one. For the basic obedience,
that
then
makes sense.
I'd put all the skills for the beginner gun dog on another one, and that's where I was at with the dogs, and I would just, every time I'd go out, I'd work on different stuff, and I kind of tracked it in my head,
kind of picking and choosing which one you want to work on.
And I would mark on there, where the dogs were at, whether they were just acquisitioning the skill, or we were working on fluency, or we was just, they already had it, and we had touched back on it. And I still go back and, even today with the dogs, I still work on that stuff,
That's good.
Like I said, some days,
It's worked pretty good for you. Those dogs are nice.
Yeah. And a lot of people say, well, if I'm having a bad day, I just don't go out and train my dog, well, sometimes when you're having a bad day, you can just take your dog out and you can do stuff with a dog that that it's going to be good at.
Absolutely.
If it's just take them out and, run a couple memories with them, or sit them on the mow marsh and take a couple of bumpers and walk out there and throw one, over at 50 yards, and walk over and throw another one, and then walk back to the dog and let him go pick them up. I mean, just anything, or a lot of times I'll just go out and I'll just do a walking baseball drill, or a wagon wheel drill, or
Yep.
I'll put an easy blind out at 70 or 80 yards and shoot a no bird off the launcher, and then turn and send him to the blind, and then let him come back and pick the mark up, just something that the dog can, it's going to be quick and easy, the dog's going to have a good time, and it's going to be low, it ain't a lot of prep work, and just like I said, days when even if I don't feel like training, a lot of times I may just go out and work on some delivery. I'll just sit the dogs out there and give them a bumper, and they'll hold it, and I'll walk out and I'll call them to me and let them deliver to hand. Just stay on it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if you've had a rough day, I mean, it's good. You'll feel a lot better if you go out with your dog. Now, if you're trying to teach your dog a new skill, you might be feeling even worse.
Yeah, if you're having a bad day, that might not be the. But you can always get out there and do a little obedience work, or do something that the dog's gonna be successful at. Just a wagon wheel, or a walking baseball, or there's just so much stuff that you can do. That 3 bucket drill that y'all had on CGA. That's a real good. That's a real good simple drill you can take out, put 3 buckets out, put some bumpers at each bucket, and just work on getting your dog to cast in the direction you want it to go every time, lining up and sending it. Just so much stuff you can do.
That's good.
Yeah.
So we're kind of transitioning from, the time will change soon.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of what's your mindset for the spring? What's your goals for your dogs, and what are you hoping to do this spring with them?
Yeah, I always look forward to getting back out there. And I've got some, like I say, I got some guys that I train with, and I've always have guys. It was this past Saturday, me and Sawyer were out, and we was running that 3-leg drill, and we got done, and I got back to the house and sat down, and somebody texted me. I look at my phone, and there was a guy that drove by, where we were training at, and I'd never met him before, but he'd got my number from somebody. He said he just messaged me and said that he was driving down Dotson Road, and he thought that was me out there training my dogs. And I said, yep, that was me. He said, well, he said, I got a 1.5-year-old dog. If you ever need anybody to train with, he said, I'd like to come out and train with you. He said, I've had 3 or 4 people around Caledonia, tell me that I ought to, call you. And so anyway, I just started texting him, and we're going to get together and train.
That's good.
Yeah. But I to answer your question, I mean, just getting back out there and, just keeping my dogs sharp, and then getting with some younger guys maybe and trying to help them out, get them, headed, and asked him, where he was at with his dog and his training. And he told me that, that he, I know some of the guys that he has trained with a little bit, and he told me he felt like the dog could probably pass a started hunt test. That's where he was at. So
that's a good. That's a great place to be.
Yeah, it is. And but we're gonna get together. And like I said, I've never met him before other than just through text. But it was just kind of, I like meeting new people.
That's awesome.
And getting out and training with different guys, So, and I have more time to do it once the time changes,
Absolutely.
Versus, rushing home, and you only got by the time you get home, you only got an hour worth of daylight to get out there and do something, So I still try to get out there with my dogs and do a little something, but it's a lot easier for me by myself to do something when I only got 30 minutes than it is trying to hook up with somebody and do it. So I'm definitely looking forward to the time changing, and like I said, we always, me and Sawyer, when we get together, we'll talk about, hey, what we want to try to do today, what we want to work on, where we're going to go work water, land, or try to run like a hunt scenario. Sometimes we had we had a pretty cool little thing that me and him was doing over at my daughter's house. I got a nice pond and on the property, and we'd put out some decoys, and I would set my Versa launcher out there, and we would kind of like, you know, have the dogs sitting there with us. You know, they'd be on their places, you know, and I would just, when I would hit that button for that Versa, I'd just launch all 6.
Oh man!
And then we'd have a gun, you know, and we'd fire 3 poppers, you know, and then, you know, after that we'd set the guns down, and then we'd just stand up and we'd just let the dogs run, pick them all up, just like a hunt scenario.
It's a pretty legit drill.
Yeah,
I bet the first time you ran that, the dogs were like, "What is going on?"
Well, I mean, how many times are you out there hunting, you know, and you and your buddies, you know, you'll knock down, you know, we've knocked down 6 ducks before, you know,
Wow.
4 or 5. I mean, a lot of times, you know, it ain't like you're shooting one at a time and they mark that one and go get it and come back and you mark another one. You know, it's a lot of the stuff that fall, you know. You got multiple birds falling, the dog can't mark all of them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to. So, you know.
No. They got to trust you. They definitely need to be exposed to that type of stuff.
We'll come up with all kind of like cool stuff to do. And there's another drill that I like to do. And like I said, when I ain't got a lot of time, it's kind of like a modified T drill. You know, I'll have the spot I'm running from and I'll just start walking in a direction, and I'll go out about 25 or 30 yards, and I'll throw some bumpers out to the right, some to the left, walk on up another, you know, 20 or 30 yards, do the same thing, come down to the end, and I'll throw, you know, 4 or 5 out down at the end. And then I'll always send the dog. There ain't nothing really out there for them to look at.
Yeah.
But I'll send them toward the far pile, and then I can stop them right there, cast them left to right to pick up one, or, you know, I can to the next spot a little further out, cast them left to right.
That's good.
Or I can stop them and then just cast them straight back to the far pile, or just let them run straight through to the far pile. You know, just simple stuff like that. You know, it's just I'm always trying to come up with something. You know, something to do with the dogs. You know, to keep them on their toes and keep me on my toes. You know,
we all got to stay on our toes. Yeah. Well, as we kind of talk through and wrap this up a little bit, let's kind of get back to, you know, what would be your thoughts for people that are kind of like you're about to help some the gentleman with's got about to start a dog. What's kind of like your first recommendations for people as they're getting going and making decisions?
I always tell everybody that I train with, and there's several of the guys that I've trained with that have joined CGA, but I always tell them, you know, for what you would pay, you know, for maybe a month and a half of a pro trainer, you know, you can get into CGA and do it yourself. And regardless of whether, you know, you get somebody else to train your dog or not, you gotta, when you get the dog back, you gotta know what you're doing.
That's right.
If you don't, I mean, you know, you just throw your money away. If you can't just sit. They ain't like a person. You can't send them off to school to get them back. And you know, I can show you how to do something. You know, a simple task. You know, and you can pretty much go and do it anywhere, but for the rest of your life. But you know, a dog ain't like that. You know, you gotta keep working with them, and if you want to have a dog that performs, you know, that you can be proud of, you know, whenever you go to a hunt test, or, you know, whenever I come to CGA weekends, or whenever I show up at the duck hole with my buddies, you know, you gotta stay out there and keep them sharp. So yeah,
you definitely want them to show good when you show up. And they will regress if you're not careful. You gotta keep them sharp.
Yeah, if you was to send a dog off and you think you can come back and not get out there and do anything with it, or you know it don't work that way. So you gotta a lot of the trainers will tell you I gotta train the handler too, or the owner too. You know what to do when they get the dog back. You know. Yeah. But yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, Marty, it's just a pleasure to have you on, and just to share any insight that you always bring. You're always so insightful, and just your approach to things, especially it's nice to have to be able to share the maturity of your skill set as a handler. You know, you've been with us for years, and you always have good thoughts that you bring to the table.
And that's something else I want. You know, anybody that might be on the fence about joining CGA or, you know, or whatever. I mean, for me, you know, I feel like for the rest with what I've gained from CGA, what I've learned as a trainer is, you know, for the rest of my life, you know, I'll always have a good dog. You know, I know exactly how to train it, I know exactly what to do. You know, whenever one day when I do get a new puppy, you know, it's no doubt in my mind that, you know, I got it under control, you know, and, you know, so I say if you have any reservations, I'd say, you know, go ahead and get in there, and it'll be the best money you ever spend if you want a really nice gun dog. So
that means a lot. Yeah. And member weekend will be coming up too. You need to meet Marty in person. You always typically he leads groups, and if you can get up under in Marty's group, he'll lead you well. You've always everybody that comes up under you, when we kind of shift the groups around, they're just enjoying it, and they're like, man, you know, Marty's just super helpful for us.
I always like meeting new people at the weekends and getting back with some of the old friends that you know, I've had from the weekends past, you know, catching up with them, seeing how their dogs, you know, made progress, you know, and and everything, and just it's always a good time. I always like bringing my gear out and helping out. It's a lot of fun. So
it means a lot. I look forward to the next one. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be that'll be a good time. Well, any closing thoughts you got just for encourage people along the way, like hey, they need to hang in there, they can do this?
Just like I said, just get out there. You know, dogs ain't not gonna train itself. There ain't no shortcuts. You got to get out there. You know, and do it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, just join CGA, and just, you know, if you want to start out with 52 plus, I think that'd be a great thing. You know, for anybody with a new dog, or even if you got an old dog, you know, or an older dog, you know, you can pick up anywhere, you know, whatever level your dog's at, you know. There's so much stuff that you can learn, you know, all those different drills and skills that your dog, you know, needs to acquire and stay proficient at throughout its life. You know, it's just, you know, it's good stuff.
Thanks, Marty. We appreciate you. And again, it's just
thanks for what y'all do too, for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Anytime you're here, man, it's an honor, and we're grateful for you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Build From Here podcast. To learn more about retriever training or our podcast, visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com/podcast.